Thank you everybody for joining. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes. I know I just got some emails from some folks that can't attend, so I just want to make sure I give everybody time to log in. We'll start here very shortly. Thank you. Okay, so it's 1:02. I'm going to get started. This meeting is being recorded. We're going to be posting this on our website. I understand that not everybody's able to join, so I want to make sure that these meetings are available, and also to go back and make sure we covered everything that we need to for a grant requirement for this project. And then also have it's publicly funded project, so we want it to be available for the public to view. So thanks for joining today. My name is Angela Palmadow. I am a program coordinator here, invasive species program coordinator for Water Resources Department for County of Lake. And today we're going to have our first Alliance team meeting. And this is for the Alliance grant through Department of Pesticide Regulation, or DPR. And our grant is for the Integrated Pest Management, or IPM, for sustainable shorelines, particularly looking at Primrose removal and Tule restoration. And as we know here in Clear Lake and tributaries, Primrose, creeping water Primrose is pretty invasive. So I want to do a quick introductions of those folks that are on the call today, just for the recording. So just if you can turn on your camera and just to say hi and say your name and what agency you're from, and we'll go through the line. So we'll start off here. It looks like I'm just going to go in the list, and we have Dr. Jamie Fox from Vector Control.
That's what you can say. Jamie Scott from Vector Control, and just happy to help however we can.
Great, thank you. Next in line, Marina.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Marina Delajanis, Deputy Water Resources Director for Lake County Water Resources.
Great. Mary Jo.
Mary Jo Velasquez, Lake County Land Trust.
Great, thank you. Kelly. She might not have her. She's our front desk. She's going to be helping us with recording in any minutes or anything like that, even though there's not really minutes required, but she's helping me with recording and admin. So thanks, Kelly. Mitchell.
Hello, everyone. Mitchell Breedlove, Lake County Water Resources Department, and I'm the technician helping Angela on this program.
Thanks, Mitchell. Ryan.
Hello, everyone. Ryan Martin, Resources Manager with California State Parks.
Great. Thank you for being here, Ryan. And William.
Hello, everybody. William Fox, Program Coordinator with Lake County Water Resources. Also happy to be here today.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for those quick introductions. So today we are going to go through an introduction of the project, talk a little bit about the schedule for this year, some things that are planned as of now, some of the next steps, and then question and answer discussion. Of course, at any time during the presentation you have a question, just please let me know. You can either just start talking, tell me to hold on and you want to ask a question, or you can raise your hand either way. So I'll be monitoring that. Today's meeting is probably going to be pretty brief because it is just an overview. And I want to make sure we address any questions or concerns at the beginning of the season. So this is the Alliance team. This is a very busy slide, and that's because we have a lot of members in the Alliance team. And some of them couldn't be here today, but that's okay because we have the meetings are always recorded. But it's a collective of active, involved collaborators involved in the planning, executing, troubleshooting, and sharing the methods and findings of this project. So our very first Alliance team meeting today, and you can see that all of our committed Alliance team members are listed here. We have Tara, the Tribal Eco Restoration Alliance, is going to be doing a lot of work with us, boots on the ground for these sites. Bullfrog Underwater Services, it's a local diving company. Robinson Rancheria, Big Valley Rancheria have been helpful with some of our other existing projects for Primrose removal and Tule restoration. And they're continuing to sign on for this group and these tasks today. Lake County Vector Control District, Lake County RCD, California Department of Food and Agriculture, they manage the hydrilla out there, and they can do a lot better job managing hydrilla if there's no Primrose. The Primrose makes it really harder for them and more expensive for them to do their jobs. California State Parks, we have a rep today on the call for that. And then AmeriCorps Civic Spark. So we are putting this project through Civic Spark to get a fellow that won't start until later in the year. And then these are all partners in the project that are supporting of the project, but not direct Alliance team members. So why do we care about Primrose? Well, Primrose is a big one for restricting navigation. It damages infrastructure. So here you have on the left, you have natural shoreline Tule shorelines here. You can see open water, easy to navigate. On the right, you have the Primrose. This is the Clear Lake Keys. Very obstructive. You know, it's almost taking over the dock, makes it hard to access the dock and inspect the dock, make for safety, infrastructure, those kinds of things. And you can't really get to the shoreline at all to remove shoreline obstructions. It fills a niche that's really needed by natives. So here on the right, we have some native aquatic smartweed. This is vital. You guys can see the way that the smartweed grows a little bit differently than the Primrose. It's in the same area of the lake, this really shallow littoral zone, but it's really spaced out. It's a lot taller. You can see there's a lot more movement for fish and wildlife to move throughout the smartweed versus the Primrose. Here on the left, you can see somebody wading through that field of Primrose, and that's what it's like in some areas out there in the lake. It can impact ecosystem services, intakes, and channels. So here on the left is an intake at County Park Lakeside, and this intake was actually pretty much clogged. They couldn't use it to irrigate any of their fields and clean anything. And then here on the right is a channel at also Lakeside County Park. You can't really navigate through that, especially if you have a canoe or hand powered. Property values have been shown to be diminished with invasive species. There have not been specific studies on Primrose, but another type of invasive called Eurasian milfoil, where you have more milfoil in the shoreline by lakeshore properties. You see a direct decline in the property value here on the y-axis as you have more coverage and this aquatic plant coverage. So same thing, Primrose, you have more shoreline cover with Primrose, you're going to have a decrease in property values. Also, Primrose hinders native shoreline restoration efforts. So we can plant native plants all day and restore shorelines, but if you have a bunch of Primrose you don't get rid of, you're not going to see the benefits of those efforts. So we really got to go through first, remove the Primrose, manage it, control it, plant natives, and then kind of continue to manage it as those natives are growing and taking off. This is a full implementation project. So this is literally going to be boots in the water, and it meets many goals of us here at Water Resource, as well as those that are in some existing plans. So it addresses an aquatic invasive species management plan, shoreline restoration, and builds education outreach and stewardship. And this is all part of integrated pest management. So effective, environmentally sensitive approach to pest management. So the goal is to not use herbicides or to reduce the use of herbicides through integrated pest management, which is what this project is doing, mostly hand pulling and using other techniques. And herbicides are expensive and they don't always work. For Primrose particularly, the best time to apply herbicides is in August, September, but usually we can't legally apply herbicides then, because that's when the state of California says we can't apply aquatic herbicides because the DO levels of the water, because it's so warm, are very low. And if we apply herbicides, we can risk harming wildlife, like fish and wildlife, and other beneficials that we need in the water. And so a lot of times, even though we have plans to do an herbicide treatment for Primrose, we can't do that because we're not allowed to legally, because the impact would be greater than a benefit. So we have to figure somewhere else, some other way to manage Primrose. Clear Lake is a drinking water source, so we want to limit herbicides that's going into Clear Lake as much as possible, particularly around areas of intake. So, Rodman Slough is a great place, lots of Primrose. There's no intakes around there. We could do herbicide applications, but other areas along the shoreline where there are intakes, we want to minimize herbicides or eliminate those use just because that is a drinking water source. And then restoration, of course, is long-term benefits for wildlife, fish benefits, and aesthetics and property values. So everything we do is going to be followed up and finished with restoration. This is kind of a breakdown of the grant. So of course we have some project admin coordination. We have Primrose removal as our second task. And that includes having subcontractors with Terra and Bullfrog, which is going to do some training for Terra and some of Water Resources staff for how to remove Primrose from shorelines. We also have task 3. This is a really big one. We've never had anything like this before. This is a private property incentive program. So what happens is people will hire Bullfrog or other contractors throughout a year to remove Primrose, but it's kind of expensive in some access. When they're looking at herbicide application, that's really expensive. So what this program does is actually help homeowners that may not normally enroll in a management plan or enroll in a management strategy, give them a little incentives financially. So maybe matching some of that effort or fully compensating for that removal of Primrose, as long as they're following up with, say, native plant restoration or natural shoreline restoration. And so we'll have subcontractors do that through Bullfrog Diving Services, and then shoreline property owners too. We're kind of going to, again, subsidize some of that management for them to be able to participate in Primrose removal and restoration on their shoreline. The last task is a natural shoreline stewardship program, both to finish the planning and implement that. So we actually have part of this is already completed from a previous Civic Spark Fellow. They created a shoreline stewardship strategy framework, and this task 4 will actually finish that and start implementing it. And there'll be a lot of materials and education produced from this task that'll be very useful for that task number 3 to kind of get property owners to understand why natural shorelines are important and how they can manage those natural shorelines, even if they have incentives or they don't have incentives. So these are the tasks for that grant. And I just wanted to make sure and show you guys the breakdown. There are also funds in there to support partners and Alliance team members for participating in some of these activities. So let's say you have some technicians that would love to come out and do work on Primrose for one of these, when we have one of our work days, but maybe you just don't have enough funds to support that, or they need to be billed somehow. Let me know, because we have built in some funds for the Alliance team members to be able to do work like that. Or let's say you want to participate in building some shoreline stewardship materials, but need to bill that somewhere, need to submit an invoice for that work. You can do that and get paid through this grant. Just contact me and let me know what you're thinking. And you can do this at any time of the grant. We'll have these quarter Alliance meetings. You can let me know about that. Oh yeah, that's our overhead and fringe, all that other stuff that goes with all of that maintenance of the grant. So part of the grant is also Primrose removal at public project locations for sustainable shoreline. So we have 4 sites selected that were part of the grant. And in the yellow, it's a total of about 4 to 5 acres of public access preserve areas. And these acres represent the maximum area that could be subjected to removal and restoration, as well as the open water in there. So this year, great news, we have a bunch of water. What does it mean? We probably aren't going to have as much Primrose coverage this year as we had the last 2 years. So we might not see as much acreage coverage this year, but maybe next year we might have lower water. We'll see more acreage coverage and approaching that 4 to 5. And these are the estimated amounts that we have for these locations. So you see we have 1.5 acres at the Wright and Milo wetland properties, working with the Lake County Land Trust, and Mary Jo's on the call today. So thank you, Mary Jo. And we're already kind of making plans for doing some of that work, because you guys have some big restoration plans going on. We want to make sure Primrose is not a part of those restoration plans. We want to get Primrose out of there so those restoration plans can go forward. We also wanted to do about 1 acre at the Clear Lake State Park. You guys have a plethora of Primrose and you have a lot of different areas there. So it'd be a great way for us to go and do some Primrose removal techniques and then follow up with restoration. And you guys have lots of wildlife that'll benefit from that work. And it's very public accessible. So that meets the goals of this grant. Also at the Anderson Marsh State Park, Cache Creek area. So Cache Creek is where the water flows out of Clear Lake. And so we want to make sure that we have that flow is unimpeded. And so if there's areas there that definitely could use more Tule restoration and Primrose removal, we wanted to include that. Again, public access, so very important for the goals of the grant. And then lastly, we have about continuation of existing project at Clark's Island. So Clark's Island is a county park, again, very publicly accessible. It's on the Lake County Water Trails map, but people can't get in there in the water trail because the Primrose is growing across the circle there through the actual water trail around the island. So we've been successful. We're going to be in our third year now of doing work out there, removing Primrose. We did some solarization techniques that worked pretty well. And then we did some really successful Tule planting out there. So we're going to continue that work with this grant. Again, making access or make it more accessible for the public and using a project that has already started, whereas all these other sites were just starting this work. The other thing is this purple border. It's kind of sloppy, but I had to do it by hand. Is the private property incentives to remove Primrose and plant Tule. So that'll be impacted around the whole entire lake here in this purple border. And then any of the shoreline stewardship education outreach that's produced, again, applies to around the whole border of the lake, shoreline of the lake. Any commercial, private property can participate, as well as state properties, tribal trust properties. Any property that wants to participate in being a natural shoreline steward can do that through this. Here's some examples. Again, the Clark's Island Manual Primrose Removal Tule Restoration. So here's what it looked like in June 2021. December 2021, you see we got a lot of that Primrose out and we planted some Tules here. All those stakes represent Tules. And then March 2022, you can see, again, we have a little bit of encroachment of Primrose that we're early on in the season we pulled. And then we have all these Tules here that are starting to grow. You can see some little green sprigs. And then we went out there this year to look at them, but they're all underwater, which is great. They love the water, but we need to wait till the water goes down a little bit and they grow a little bit more to get a total follow-up photo. So here's an example of a private resident removal. So this is kind of what we're looking for the incentive program portion. You can see here on the left, they had all this Primrose here around their dock. And they went through and removed it. And here's what it looks like to the right. So this is kind of what we're wanting to provide for property owners through the incentive program. So they can do some of this work themselves, or if they want to hire somebody, the application for that, they can get a match for hiring somebody to do that work for them. The idea is that we want to make it easy for people to do that. So everybody is participating as much as possible in removing Primrose because this guy could be removing Primrose from the property, but if their neighbor can't afford to do that, the Primrose is just going to encroach back onto that property. This is an example of diver manual removal. So Bullfrog is one of our partners, and they're going to be working with us on this project. And you can see this was like maybe in a day, he did a removal around this intake. Did he remove all the Primrose from the channel? No, but the goal was to remove it so the intake could function and actually provide water for the whole park, which is what it was able to do. And then the Primrose didn't really grow back in the rest of the season. It kind of stayed out of that circle. Now, it probably grew back in the following years, but this year was the year that they needed to remove that in order to have the intake be functional. So Bullfrog's going to be working with our Terra group to remove Primrose from the water that's submerged, while the Terra group will be working to remove Primrose from the shoreline, which is where the Primrose likes to grow from. And this is all in contrast to an herbicide treatment. So this is one that occurred in 2018. This is Dutch Harbor. I don't know if you're familiar with this place. It's right along the shoreline of Lakeport, right kind of north of the area where the new park is going. But you can see a lot of Primrose blooming. And then they went through and did an herbicide treatment. And this was about a week after treatment. So did they kill some of the Primrose? Yes, they did. The biomass is still there. And what happens is it'll just sink to the bottom as sediment. There's still flowering portions of Primrose that's there that'll still bud, create seed, have root mass. And if you've ever been to Dutch Harbor recently, in a normal water year summer, you still have Primrose around the harbor because it's just really hard to get an effective herbicide for the whole area. So this is kind of what we want to address, the manual pulling of Primrose and then maybe putting some native plants in there to prevent that Primrose from coming back. as opposed to just doing herbicide treatments every year that don't have a successful long-term finish. So now the schedule, are there any questions so far from everybody? I'm kind of going through this quickly, but I want to make sure we got to the schedule here. Okay, good, covering stuff. So the Alliance team meetings, this is a grant requirement to have these meetings. These are quarterly, but this is great because this is how we do collaboration and we let people know what we're doing. It's also a way for us to troubleshoot. So if we have an issue that arises at any of the project sites, we have a well-experienced, well-versed group of folks that we can tap into and share that information and gain some knowledge from. So these are the meeting dates. And right now I have them all in my calendar and we'll share them all with you. And they're all going to be virtual unless they're going to be site work meetings, which we do plan for some of these, especially some of these ones. Maybe we'll have a Primrose removal or work group in July. And then maybe December, we'll maybe have a Tule planting, or March, we'll have a Tule planting work group, something like that. And so but for now, these will all be virtual. We're going to record all the meetings and put them on the website, which IT informed Kelly that they're working on. So we should have that shortly, where we'll have the dates and the video recordings. If anyone wants to take a screenshot of this right now, do that, but just know that too, we're going to be sharing today, making sure all those invites go out to everybody in the Alliance team. So the next steps here, we have an annual spring training. So this is mostly with Tara and Bullfrog, but anybody on the Alliance team is invited, or you're invited. You can invite staff too, just to get a report and see what we're doing and learn about that. So this is scheduled for May 17th to the 18th. And we'll be going over, making sure we know how to use all the equipment and tools that were purchased from this grant. And then also learning about Primrose, how it grows from the shoreline and extends out over the water, and the time of year and the methods best for manually removing them. And then also testing some strategies on bulk removal. So how do we get the Primrose out of the shoreline and into the truck or trailer that then can be dumped? So going through the whole process. So basically we're a well-oiled machine. So when there is a site work day, we can go through, remove as much Primrose as possible and get it off to where it needs to go efficiently and effectively to meet the grant deliverables, but also so we can have a positive impact on the shoreline. Water Resource Department and Tara are going to finish purchasing equipment materials. And then we're also going to look at choosing work days after the training. So usually we'd have work days chosen by now, but again, this year has been really weird and we have a lot of water and there's not Primrose out there. There's no sign of Primrose. I'm not sure yet when it's going to grow. And we want to make sure we have enough of it growing that we can grab it. We can identify where its roots are, and Bullfrog can go in there and get those roots out. So we're thinking we'll probably have a good idea of that later in the month. Hopefully by June 1st, we'll have all our work days picked out. But this year, again, is just kind of weird because so much water. And then we're going to do some site visits. So we had scheduled those in March. But as you guys know, we had a lot of water and rain in March. And so a lot of the sites were actually too flooded, inundated, or unsafe. So for example, the property at the right property, also Anderson Marsh, some of those sites we really couldn't get to safely to be able to do full site visits to assess the situation. So we're going to do those site visits probably sometime this month to kind of help us, and that'll help us choose work days when we look at how big the site is. We need to work with you, Ryan, at State Parks to figure out the best place for us to do this project within State Park, because you guys have a huge amount of area and Primrose is all over. So that's something, you start thinking about some priority sites. So we'll contact you to do the site visit so we can pick the best one. And we estimate about an acre area there. So we can definitely match up. We can do like half an acre here, just to kind of maximize and see what works best for this project, if that makes sense with you.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, we have some kind of planning efforts going on around the boat ramp as well, of a project that I believe we mentioned to you. So it'd be great to kind of work on the edges of that. And that way, if we can get our parks project going, we could really kind of double our efforts out there. So, yep, let's coordinate.
Great, perfect. Yeah, so we'll maximize the work that's already been done and continue doing that. That's perfect. That's exactly what this grant is for. And then Mary, you have a question? Mary Jo?
Yeah, when you say site visit, is it by land or by sea or by both?
We haven't thought about doing it by sea yet. I think site visits mostly with Tara and Bullfrog is we just want to go out and check out the sites, mostly for the
By
public
land.
access sites. So we can get an idea of the workspace, you know. Are we gonna be able to bring a truck in, or do we have to bring in, you know, a bunch of wheelbarrows to wheel stuff in? You know, do we need to get a porta potty, or do we need to schedule the days differently, or have like things like that? All the logistics really depend on the site. And like we've done a lot of work, like I said, at Clark's Island, Highland Springs. Those facilities and those sites are very different than some of these other sites we have. So that's part of the site visits, is getting all that figured out before we actually schedule the work days and have a bunch of people out there that have to do a bunch of, you know, manual labor and a lot of good work. We just need to make sure we have everything to support
Okay.
that effort.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. And how's it looking out there at the right property, Milo property? Is it a little drier?
We can get to the levee. The road beyond that you're not interested in is pretty eroded and needs repair, but
Okay.
you can get to the levee now.
Okay, great. So we'll know. Yeah. So sometime this month, I think we want to do site visits, even though we have rain in the forecast this next week. So yeah, weird year, but that's great. Not going to complain about rain ever. So that works. And we'll reach out and coordinate with you, Mary Jo, make sure everybody that is interested from Land Trust wants to be there on those days, either the work days or the site visits.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. And then water resources, we're working on advertising our incentive program. So we're basically it's gonna be like an application form for property owners to apply, so then we can assess, you know, who would be the best ones to use this incentive program. I think we're gonna need a lot of applications, but I think we're actually gonna, you know, have trouble spending down that incentive funds that we have in this. And then making sure we have enough work days and staff from either Terra Water Resources to go and do those jobs. Before we do the advertising for that, we have to create all those materials for the application, and we're working on that. Mitchell and I are working on that. And then we're in the process of recruiting a Shoreline Steward Fellow intern with Civic Spark. Last year we had a little issues with Civic Spark, but we're going to try again this year. And then we are working with the grant administrators for the DPR, that if we can't get a fellow, we have some backup plans, and we can basically get an intern-ish type of position to do the stewardship. So this is also great to have an alliance team, because if any of you guys have any staff that's interested in shoreline stewardship or outreach, or if you know anybody looking for a job like this, let us know. We love doing Civic Spark Fellow because they're here for 11 months. They usually come from somewhere else, so they bring that knowledge from somewhere else with them, but they also learn about Lake County. And it would just be great to have, you know, this would be their deliverable, their project that they focus on. But we also would just love to have anybody else, if there's anybody interested that truly has a passion for that. So then of course, reporting and tracking. So making sure we're recording everything that we're doing and tracking it, and having that record throughout our quarterly reports for the grant, but also through these alliance team meetings, so everybody knows what we're doing and that we're on track. So that is about it for today. I went through everything on the outline list. I would like to hear any of your questions, concerns, comments. And if you're watching this as a recording, you can email those to me. Hopefully you were emailing or writing any notes if you had any of those. And as we have more and more meetings, we'll showcase, you know, some of the work we've done at the sites, and talk about any issues we have. So that'd be great to get your feedback from those as we go through the season, as opposed to the end of the year. If we do just a final report and you hear about it all later, we'd rather have it on a quarterly basis. If you're interested in having anybody participate for work days or other types of contributions, let us know. Also, if you need staff to be compensated for time or travel or anything, let us know that also, so we can make sure and put that in, but we do have budgeted funds for that. And I talked a lot about Primrose, which is the little guy here on the bottom, but this is also about Tule's, native plant restoration. And so here's an example of some Tule's that we harvested from Highland Springs that we were sorting, making sure they weren't bringing any other things in with them, on a table. And then these got all planted at Clark's Island. And so the wintertime activities for these sites is something like this, where we're going to be doing Tule restoration, whereas the spring, summer activities are the Primrose management. But I just wanted to make sure that the Tule's weren't forgotten, because they're very important. They're a big part of this project. And it was written to be an invasive species management control project with a restoration as part of that control. Because once you have a nice wall of Tule's there, it's really hard for that Primrose to get over them and get into the lake. We've seen with other sites. So that's the goal. I think that's it. Are there any questions? Comments so far for this today?
I had a quick one, I guess, just kind of on the logistics of the removal is, do you have sites that you're able to haul them off to, or would you be looking for locations to actually remove the material to, say, at the 2 state parks?
So we do have a location in Upper Lake where historically we've had dumped our Primrose. And I think the amount that we're going to be removing this year for these projects shouldn't be too much more than we've done in the past. And that area is huge, so we can definitely dump stuff there and it kind of just breaks down. If you guys have a need for green stuff or compost, we can dump at your site, or are you just asking because you didn't want anything to be dumped on state park area?
Well, no, I can actually reach out to, I mean, I'm located here in Orville at our district office. So my thought is I'd reach out to our local kind of staff there and just see if they'd be opposed, because I know that would save on hauling costs and all that. I mean, we have, burn pile areas. I know you gotta let this stuff dry out, but just some thoughts I was gonna kind of bring up with them is, if there's spots on site that we could haul this material to save on a little bit of that logistics.
Yeah, that would be great, because especially our site is literally on the opposite side of the lake from the state park. So if there was a local spot that we could put it where it dry out, and we wouldn't have to do those trailer loads, that would make the work go a lot faster. So yeah, let me know if they have a site. The thing with that is the state food and ag just needs to know where that location is, so we can make sure it's not an area that will ever get water. In case there's any hydrilla in there, they don't have to worry about it. And again, with invasives, we don't want invasives to do that. Primrose is kind of weird as an invasive in the water. It's really aggressive, but once you pull it out, it's like it really dies and doesn't really do much. It's not like a rundo or other ones where it can reroot, or you're worried about it. It's really like falls apart once you pull it. But we do need to be safe in case there are any seeds or anything else inside of that we don't want to move that. So that's great, Ryan. Yeah, let me know if there's any local spot. We'll fit that in for the state park. And also if there's anything in Anderson Marsh, that would be a big one, because that's way far away from our whole site.
Yeah, I'll ask at least the local folks and kind of have that ready for when we do the site visit.
Yeah, and the dump site we have is for now, but I understand it's probably not gonna be forever, especially if I keep putting mountains of Primrose on there.
Right. All right.
My boss is on the line too, so want her to know that I'm thinking about that. So any other comments or questions today? Great. Well, thank you so much. I knew this would be a little quick meeting, but I just want to make sure everybody was on the same page and you guys are aware of the project. And we will, be doing work sites. Oh, I have something in the chat. Is there anything? Oh, okay. And then reach out if, again, you're interested in participating in this, and any of the work days or anything else. And then I think we have another quarterly meeting in July. And yeah, let's look at the schedule. Yeah. So July 17th will be the next one. They're always Mondays at 1 p.m. So that'll be right at the beginning probably of a lot of the removal work days. So we'll probably have the workday date schedules for the next Alliance team. And then you guys can decide if you want to show up for any of those, but there's no obligation. The Alliance team is not more staff to remove stuff and more hands on deck. It's just to have that knowledge base to be able to talk through things that come up and have local support and collaboration. I did have a question for Jamie at Vector Control. I don't know if there was any interest from you guys of doing mosquito surveys for some of these sites where we have a lot of Primrose, so we can see how it reduces, mosquito habitat through a restoration.
Oh
site.
yeah, I'd love to put some numbers behind that. Kind of depends on the site and what our loads like this summer. I know we're off to a busy season with our Tule
Lots of
mosquitoes.
water.
Yeah, but it's made a big difference for us. Like some of the work we've done out at Clark's Island already. I mean, that made a big difference in us being able to get out and treat that. So let me know where we end up doing projects, and I'll see what we can do about getting some before and after mosquito sampling.
Yeah, that'd be great. So we'll have probably a really clear idea of the dates and the areas around the July meeting for you.
Fantastic.
Okay, awesome.
Also, are you looking for volunteers from the public to come out and help on some of these days?
Yeah, I think we did envision the grant, not every single workday, but some of them, especially for areas like the Lake County Land Trust already has volunteers to go out and do some work.
Okay.
There, so that would be, maybe a site that we could do that. Clark's Island is very accessible by the public. So yeah, we were definitely open to that and wanted to schedule maybe 1 or 2 of the work days a year be volunteer sites. So yeah, do you guys have a volunteer network, or did you have questions about
No, I was
that?
going to say the local high schools have a public service requirement for the students. So if this is something, I think if you reach out to the guidance counselors or include them in that, they can let the students know that there are some work days available to get their volunteer hours.
And do those have to be done during the school year?
No, they can be done during the summer.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
They just have to get it pre-approved by the school. I know my she's a high school student, and so she's going through the process of getting all of those, but it's very easy. That it's a nice source of work if we need it.
Yeah, that might be good. And that would be somewhere like the state park might be good for that, because we know there's the facilities to account for that many, and you guys already are set up for the public and all of that. And that might be better than somewhere like the right property where we don't have a lot of facilities or parking, and don't necessarily want to lose high schoolers running around so yeah, no, that's great. Okay, so I'll look into that. And maybe one of those fall work days or something, that would be good. And thanks for that advice. That'd be really helpful. Yeah. And after we get a look at these sites and see the amount of work that's out there, that could be super valuable. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Jamie. All right. So thank you, everybody. Any last questions, comments? All right. Well, I really appreciate everybody showing up today. Again, the recording will be on our website as long with a bunch of other stuff related to this grant. And then we'll see you guys July 17th, unless you hear from us earlier for something else. But I don't anticipate that, just because this year is probably going to be a little late growing for Primrose. So we'll use that to our advantage. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Nice to see everybody on the computer, and I hope you guys have a good day. Thanks again.
Thanks, Angela. You too.
Thanks, everyone.